The irony isn't lost on me. I'm fully aware I decided to play a block game after taking a break from a block game. Terraria, or Terraria if you're weird, is a survival sandbox game with a heavy emphasis on the side of exploration, boss slaying, and RPG mechanics. Alternatively, according to Steam, this is also called an open-world survival craft game. What mixture of acids and Rice Krispies did the Steam community scrub their brains with? Open world survival craft? Dude, that's called a survival sandbox. A survival game already implies resource collection and crafting, and sandbox implies doing whatever you want with the game's world. The new tag is stupid. I digress. Terraria is a game that has sold an insane amount of copies across both PC and console, though despite its popularity, it's still either being called a Minecraft clone or being used as a standard to hold Minecraft 2, both of which are wildly incorrect takes, by the way. But that's besides the point. I'm here to discuss whether or not this game is good or not, and hopefully with my analysis I can really show you just how this game stands on its own. So if you like what you see here today, consider hitting the like and subscribe button. Or don't, I mean you do you, not your mom. Let's start with the good. Terraria has a fantastically structured progression line that nudges the player towards a direction without blatantly stating what it is. Due to the nature of survival sandbox games, the player would feel naturally inclined to go deep underground to find the best ores to get armor and weapons. However, what the player doesn't know is that once you reach 10 defense, the Eye of Cthulhu has the chance to naturally spawn, which serves as a phenomenal way to tell the player about bosses being a factor without literally holding your hand. The guide NPC also serves as a pretty surface level way of telling the player about stuff to get them going. Either way, educating a player through gameplay is always preferred over a long-winded tutorial in my opinion, so it's nice that we have that here. Unlike a lot of other sandbox games where the only building that matters is your base, in this game building structures is a constant component to your gameplay, and I mean constant. Building houses for NPCs isn't just building a home like it used to be, but now they can be satisfied based on certain parameters like specific biomes, both a biome they love and a biome they despise. Even what neighbors they have can matter. This is important because getting their happiness to a certain point can grant you bonuses like discounts and new items. And while you certainly don't have to make an arena, the bosses sure do make it feel like a requirement on expert mode. Arenas are usually comprised of platforms and occasional solid walls to stop shots, and listen, I know my arena is far from efficient, okay, but go easy on me, this is my first time building one without a guide. There's also tons of different crafting recipes and machines that sure you could just slap outside, but having a roof over your head while browsing the menus probably wouldn't hurt. So much of the game is an equal balance of building and RPG mechanics. It's incredibly solid. Speaking of RPG mechanics, there are many different class archetypes in this game, but you're never bound to just one. You can translate seamlessly from one to the next. I went with a summoner for this particular video and found that to be somewhat of a mistake for soloing expert, but it was fun having an army of imps or spiders with me. There's also warrior, mage, ranger, technically a throwable variant of ranger, and believe it or not, a fucking yo-yo class, with tons of different options for weaponry all the way till the end of the game. And obviously there's weapons that just perform better outright, but nothing wrong with just rocking serviceable gear. Upgrades to your character are found by exploring, ranging from accessories to armor to even permanent stat increases like health or mana, and if you happen to already have maxed out health or mana, you can turn the extra stat increase items into unique blocks that grant a passive effect, which can I say is a master stroke of genius. Now I did mention boss fights, so let's go ahead and talk about those. Boss fights in this game are really well designed and even have different patterns depending on if you're playing expert or master mode or not. We talked about that first fight being the Eye of Cthulhu, which on a normal fight would be pretty tame and serve as a simple first boss for new players, but on expert, the boss gains a rage state towards the last third of its health bar, this rage state making it charge faster and more frantically. Or like Skeletron, who on a normal fight only has the hands and a spinning head. Actually, he's kind of harmless. But on expert mode, the head now spits homing cursed skulls, so you can't just safely sit in one spot. It sounds silly, but the simple addition of a new attack pattern on top of the beefier stats makes the higher difficulty feel like a proper higher difficulty. The best part? There's certain bosses that inherently unlock more game for you. The Wall of Flesh seems like a final boss, but it isn't. In fact, it's not even the halfway point of the game. Defeating it, however, unlocks the rest of the game known as hard mode, which means even more bosses which are harder than the last ones. And I'm talking hard enough to make your Wall of Flesh gear defend you like a wet pasta noodle. The good news is you actually unlock the ability to find new ores pretty much at the start of hard mode, so you should be fine. Terraria proves how dope it is to make a higher difficulty with more effort than number changes. Just doing stat increases is a lame substitution for difficulty, and the industry needs to cut it out. There's also so much just simple, not important stuff in this game that adds a lot of charm to the game. To prove this point, let me just rattle them off real quick. You have slots dedicated to things like summonable pets, passive lights, minecarts, and grapple hooks so that way they don't take up inventory space. There's tons of cool weather effects like your simple calming rain to thunderstorms, sandstorms, blizzards, raining slime, and blood moons, all of them harboring some sort of effect on the world ranging from more or less harmless to what in the shit. The background, even having the occasional random creature or something traveling across it, just kind of makes the world seem more lively, and I love that. Corruption doesn't just stay in one place once you enter hard mode. It actually spreads. Same with the Hollow. It really sells the whole detail about these biomes bringing ruin to the world. There is a ludicrous amount of block options that not only have different textures, but effects to really customize your world and build unique contraptions. Like rain cloud blocks that actually make rain fall in that area, spikes that damage the enemies that don't fly around the foreground, furniture that actually provides buffs for you, tons of cool stuff. Exploring structures like the dungeon and abandoned buildings is really fun with its frequency, on top of which the loot usually feels good to find, and even having a duplicate of some stuff is a good thing with the different variants you can have of the weapons. The world gen is actually really interesting because it has set rules, yet it's randomly generated so that way you can easily locate things while still having a whole new experience. Every aspect of this game is designed around, is it fun? Yes? Put it in. Like letting the NPCs throw a party? They didn't have to do this, but they did, and it adds so much more charm and whimsy to the game. Genuinely, this game is one of my favorite games of all time. However, you know the rules. I gotta talk about cons, and unfortunately, even one of my favorite games of all time has some glaring ones, so let's talk. Let's talk about easily its largest flaw out of any of them. This game is a wiki game. If you don't know what that means, basically it means that in order for you to fully experience this game and enjoy it, you will need to pull up some sort of wiki page on the game in order to get a lot of information. There's been other games I've played with this issue, even beta Minecraft had this problem, but in this game, it's not just looking at some mechanics to get a basic understanding, it's the whole fucking game. The guide only provides subtle hints, but does not provide enough information on what bosses there are, let alone how to actually make the fight manageable. You have no idea about classing until later in the game, and if you don't know about it, you're actively at a disadvantage the whole game. The guide shows you crafting recipes, but only if you have a material to make it, and with how many recipes there are in this game, this means you are highly unlikely to actually ever find out all of them on your own. Also, when you enter hard mode, the Hollow does have a chance to start in the jungle, and if it does, other than the changing water, how in the fuck would a new player even know the Hollow is here? Also, the only boss that naturally shows up is the Eye of Cthulhu in the early game, and no, I'm not counting invasions, so if you only fought that, you are given zero inclination what the next step would be. Hell, the Wall of Flesh you practically would have had to find out by complete accident. Does the voodoo dolls fall in accidentally all the time? Yeah. Does that mean the game just shouldn't inform you of your objectives? No! Basically, Too Long Didn't Listen, the game has far too much information and far too little explanation within the game. It's fundamentally terrible design for a game of this scale and complexity to not at least give you a direction or even just tell you that classing is important. A wiki should never be the sole way you learn about the fundamentals of a game. Ever. Because if the internet is out, or maybe you're playing on a mobile console, then how the fuck are you supposed to know anything? And I get the idea that someone's gonna say, oh, but the achievements tell you. Tell me one fucking person who upon opening a game looks at the achievements immediately. And if it's you, you're a freak, because I know sure as shit that no one I know does. Next problem. Inventory management, while better here than in most games of this genre with its quick dumping button and its sort button, still suffers from inventory bloat on a wild scale. Not really due to useless additions cluttering space, but more so that there's so much important shit that you need that the amount of chests you see in my footage still isn't enough. It also doesn't help that once you put your stuff in a chest, you still have to know where those ingredients are to craft what you want to make. The easiest way to solve this would be to make a crafting table that pulls resources from any chest that's on the screen or something, and I'm aware that this is probably a mod, but remember that new players 9 times out of 10 don't mod the game right away, so this would be a player's first experience. It needs fixing, because without mods this was miserable. Weather-based events have zero way to be forced other than sleeping and crossing your fingers, yet we can force a blood moon? We can force a dangerous moon state, but forcing something as simple as rain is out of the fucking question. This is an important deal because there are a handful of items that are great for early hard mode, but locked behind weather events that can only happen from certain game states. Sandstorms requires the day to be windy, which can just happen at any point in the day and is constantly checked, making it the least problematic of the two, and rain has a solid 18% chance to happen during the day, and it's not checked every tick. Why is rain important? Blizzards, which house ice elementals that drop materials for frozen wings, and the Cool Whip, two rather fucking important items for Summoner. And I know it says 18% chance for it to rain, but I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. In order for me to get the blizzard when I wanted it, I had to wait 4 actual fucking hours because I was always not getting rain. It was so bad that I was up till 2 in the morning waiting for rain. Anyways, speaking of Summoner Summoner, while better than it once was, is still not quite popping off damage-wise. I've beaten the game with Ranger, Mage, and Warrior, but Summoner damage-wise just doesn't seem to be even coming close enough to the same output. I'm willing to accept skill issue, and maybe there's information I missed, but if it is that latter part, then that only solidifies why requiring a wiki is a problem. Overall, I'd say this game's core flaws come down to its requirement of outside information and its abysmal inventory management system. So with the major cons out of the way, let's talk about minor gripes. Wings not having a dedicated accessory slot feels weird, because why is it the only mobility type to not have its own slot? The platform placement snapping is really useful, but instead of just snapping to platforms, which I imagine most players want, the platform placement also catches any wall even remotely in front of you, making you sometimes accidentally place them anywhere but where you want. The Nautilus boss being more or less dictated by a random chance while fishing during a random weather event is dumb. I've always been against the prospect of having major content pieces held away from you by RNG, and here it's no exception. Let the player spawn Nautilus with a crafting recipe at least, like come on. Or maybe even better yet, make it to where the fight is triggered once you force a blood moon while at the beach. Because if we're going to be able to force blood moons, maybe we could just make that also force a Nautilus fight depending on where you're standing. I will also say, and again acknowledging skill issue, on expert mode worlds, hard mode mech bosses kind of feel like an insane difficulty spike comparatively to what was Wall of Flesh. I've beaten them before, but playing Summoner actually sort of showed me how insane they are since I was focusing less on attacking and more on dodging. I don't recall them being this much of a spike during normal world playthroughs. Granted it's normal mode, but even for expert they feel cranked to 11. Might just be me, I don't know. And that wraps up the cons, so on to overall thoughts. Terraria, despite its flaws, remains to be a solid gem of a game. Everything about its memorable experience I hold near and dear to my heart, from its charming visuals, its cool bosses, its music, all of it feels like a game made from love, and I think more games should strive for this feeling. If you have somehow never played Terraria before, it's unreasonably cheap and I highly recommend you pick it up. Contrary to common statements, this is far from a clone of Minecraft and it deserves being recognized as its own deal. It also shouldn't even be used as a standard to hold Minecraft to, as both of them are fundamentally built different from the ground up, but maybe that's a video for the future. Speaking of Minecraft though, I suppose that's the elephant in the room right now, isn't it? If you were not made aware by my community post, I'm currently on a break from Minecraft content. I don't plan on it being permanent, so don't sweat, but I started to feel burnout even by the time I released my Reminiscence mod pack review. Once I started the Better Than Wolves mod, I realized my headspace wasn't really in the right spot to give the mod a fair judgment. So I made the, believe it or not, incredibly difficult decision to take a break from it until the desire comes back, basically. Probably gonna be at least a couple of months till I do another. Sorry if this is horrible news for you lovely folks out there. I'd be foolish to not acknowledge how much you love the mod pack reviews, but I think you all would rather me not just barf out something. So in the meantime, leave your game suggestions in the comments below and maybe I'll even check it out. Thank you for giving this video a shot, and thank you for your constant support. This has been the Bond Dweller, consuming rocks since the start of the millennium.